I chose a leopard print and I made a dress. It's a neat fabric, fitted bodice, gathered skirts and tees, lots of options here. I'm really happy with my dress. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and I have some neat sewing to share with you today. I've sewn a dress. I chose a really beautiful leopard print from my collection of fabrics, ITYs. I really like that type of fabric. It's really fresh, it's drapey. I like ITY for features such as gathers in patterns. And the dress I sewed has gathers, so it's perfect because it doesn't end up poofy. You know, you get the beautiful gathers, but it still stays nice and close to the body. And what I'm talking about is the Dream On dress from Pattern Emporium. This dress is 50% off for one day. The sale started a couple of hours ago. It ends Saturday at noon, but in Australia, over here in this area of the world, around Friday night. I will leave all the information down below. 50% off is a great time to get an amazing pattern. It's a great deal. If you want to use my affiliate link, I'd super appreciate it. You don't pay anything extra. The link takes you directly to the website and I get a small commission back from the designer. And that supports the work that I do here on YouTube, making helpful sewing videos for you. And this one has a lot of options. It's a fitted bodice that reaches the waist. Now on the pattern piece, you have two cut lines, one for a regular and one for a tall person. I think that's awesome. So, you know, you don't have to do too many pattern adjustments there. Below the bodice, you have two tiers. Depending on how long you make these tiers, how long your dress ends up being, because there's a mini, a knee length, a midi, and a maxi. The bottom tier depends on the size that you're sewing is going to be made out of 2 pieces on the fold or 3 pieces on the fold. For my size, I had to cut 3 pieces for the second tier. Beautiful, it turns out amazingly gathered. All those seams, you can't see them because I used the print, so that's really good. And for the first tier, it'll just be a front and a back. The neckline is rounded. They are all finished with neckbands. And it can be a high, a mid, or a low scoop. Or for winter, you can sew on a roll neckline like a turtleneck option as well if you want to do that. Sleeves, as always, lots of options here. There's a cap, short, 3/4 long, or with a regular type of fitted sleeve. Otherwise, you can do bishop sleeves, full length or a short one. I've done the short bishop sleeve, which is something I don't usually do, but let's try something different. And plus, looking at my fabric, I had enough for the sleeve, so that was really good. I know I usually sew sleeveless. I would have made it sleeveless because it's a choice as well here. Finish it with binding, but yeah. The sleeve is nice. It turned out really nice. You can also sew inseam pockets if you want to on the sides. But if you know how I like to sew, I would never do that. You will also find instructions and a pattern piece for you to make this a separate skirt. So there is a waistband that you put an elastic through and then you would use the same tiers. You get a nice skirt, midi, knee, midi, and maxi as well. I think that's really cool. The shape of these tiers, they're not rectangles, they're slightly curved, which I think is always going to give you a better fit than rectangle tiers. So that's something I noticed about the pattern, I think is awesome. Fabric, you need neat fabric. Do not make this with a woven fabric. And if you like this style and you would like this same style in a woven, there is a pattern at Pattern Emporium for woven that I have already made in 2021, I believe. It's called Meet You There. Nice bodice with the tiers, the same bishop sleeve, all of that. It's just that the bodice is not as fitted. It's more of a looser style, but you still get those gathers and the tiers and all of that. So let's stay with the knit fabrics, at least 30% stretch horizontal, 15% vertical for you to be able to get a really good fit. If you choose a knit that does not have vertical stretch, then your bodice is going to end up super short. Your armholes are going to be very uncomfortable. Your sleeves, you're just not going to be comfortable. So rayon spandex, bamboo spandex, modal spandex, these all work, but just know that that bodice is going to be lower. Everything's going to be lower and looser and longer just because this fabric stretches a lot vertically as well. And it just stretches. It's not my type of fabric. I do have a few in my collection, but I'm only using them for pajamas right now because they just don't last that much in the wash. So you can use double brush poly, ITY, sweater knits, athletic knits, swim, maybe even a stretch velvet if it stretches vertically, because not all stretch velvet stretches vertically. If you want to do the skirt version, the waistband does have an elastic inside. It's a 1.5 inch elastic. Now, the way that these gathers are sewn in the tutorial shows you a method with clear elastic that I know some people like. It's an elastic that is really stretchy. I do not have access to this type of clear elastic, so I just do my gathers traditionally with the sewing machine and thread. So the way I sew, you don't need any extra notions to be able to gather on those tees right there. The sizing is the full size range of the newest patterns from 4 to 30 Australian, up to a 58.5-inch hip. You need to plot your measurements down, looking at the high bust a lot because that's what's going to ensure your shoulders fit and the neckline fits really well. I've chosen a size 16. All my measurements fall within that size. I'm very happy. No changes, 0 changes. All I did was choose the bodice that's a little longer, the tall cut line. Perfect. And then to choose the length of the tiers, you're going to have a chart that tells you what length you're going to have finished for the mini, the knee, all of that. So I just cut the knee length, the tall cut line, and I have 2 tees that end up right at the knee, and that's perfect. But personal fitting changes, pattern adjustments, nothing. It's just right out of the printer, and it turned out amazing. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to sew this. I am straying a little bit from the instructions because I'm going to line my bodice. I'm using ITY and I like to line my bodices if I use that fabric. It's just too clingy. I just don't like fitted bodices in such a thin fabric. But if you have 2 layers, then it turns into a better medium type weight fabric. And I'm going to enclose the waist seam. So all the gathers are going to be enclosed. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. It's super easy. Mainly done on the serger, but the gathers are going to be done on the sewing machine. Here are the bodice pieces for my Dream On dress. Now you see a lot of pieces and that's because I'm doubling up on them. I'm going to fully line the bodice because I'm using ITY. That's something I do consistently because ITY is so flimsy. This is a fitted bodice with negative ease and I don't want bra lines showing, nothing like that. So here are the 2 backs, they're both cut on the fold. Here are the 2 fronts, cut on the fold. And this is going to be my neckband. Well, ITY, I didn't want to use ITY for the neckband because I find it pretty flimsy, especially noting that I'm going to have 2 layers of this. I don't think it would mesh really well. So I'm going to use cotton lycra. It's a denim look, cotton lycra, nice recovery. It's going to be nice and stable for the neckband. So that's something different. This is dark gray, blackish. It's going to match right here. It's going to look fine. It's not going to look strange. Here is my sleeve piece. I'm going to do a shorter bishop sleeve. It'll be around the elbow. There is one that's full length. There's also regular sleeve options, there's sleeveless options, so there's lots to choose from. But I think this is going to look really cute. So that's my piece right there. These are my 2 first tiers. These are 2 pieces that were cut on the fold. I've got them both here extended. So that on the top is what's going to be sewn onto the waistline of the bodice. And then below here comes the second tier. It looks like this. It was a piece that was cut on the fold, but 3 times. So I'm going to have to sew all these 3 pieces together to gather onto that one to create a nice gathered effect. For both of these bodices, I'm going to do the same thing. This is the front. I'm going to put the back right on top. And I'm going to sew shoulder seams and side seams. And then I'll have a completed bodice. And I'll repeat with the other one. Then to actually join them up and line, for this dress, I'm going to enclose the waist seam. So I'm going to have gathers in between both of the bodice pieces. And that's going to be a smoother, nicer experience on my midsection. I'm going to just then base the armholes together and sew on my sleeve as normal and then sew on my neckband as normal, but that enclosed waist seam is going to be amazing. I've done the basic seams for the bodice, super straightforward, shoulder seams and side seams. They are basically identical. So I've chosen this one to be my main bodice. That's why I have it right sides out. And this is where I'm going to attach that first tier to. I'm going to keep this one just like it is and then I'm going to use it later. I've assembled the skirt pieces. I've done quite a lot of sewing actually. This is the first tier and I've sewn the side seams right there. That is the top part that's going to be sewn onto the bodice. The second tier is made out of 3 pieces, not 2. So I have a center back seam that I'm going to leave at the back. And then on the front, we're going to have 2 seams like that. Now I'm going to put these aside. I want to sew this onto the bodice first. It's just less complicated to do it like that. So I'm going to do the gathering stitches here on the top and I'm going to pin it just onto one of these bodices. It's going to be easier to line the bodice just doing it with this first tier. You know, instead of having the whole thing hanging, I can attach that second tier later. So I'm just going to gather that, pin it all the way around, and then I'm going to bring in the second bodice. So it's going to be one seam on the round, but it's going to have two bodices and it's going to enclose that seam. I'm going to be doing lots of gathering stitches here. This is the first T in the section that's going to be sewn onto the bodice, onto the bottom of the bodice at the waist. And I'm going to do this traditionally the same way I would do gathers on a woven project. I'm just using the longest stitch length here that I have, which is 5. And I'm doing this first one on the edge. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the second one about 3/8 of an inch from the edge. So I have 2 rows to be able to gather. So yeah, I'm going to do this all along the edges of the skirt that need it. Okay, I took the time to gather this first T of the skirt onto the bodice. There are the gathers. Now, because I want to now put the second bodice here, I don't want to deal with all those pins. I rarely ever do this, but I did hand baste the gathers down right there. You can see the red thread. So they're fixed in place, so I don't have to worry about that. This bodice is wrong sides out. And I'm going to just slide all of this right here, matching up the front with the front and the back with the back, of course. Now what you want to see is the T in the middle. This second bodice that I'm adding is wrong sides up, and this bodice underneath is also wrong sides up. So if I were to move this tier out of the way, both bodices would be right sides together. So that's how it goes. 3 layers, a bodice, a skirt, a bodice. Wrong sides up, wrong sides up. That is how it's going to turn out correct. And now it's just about matching the side seams of the bodices right here. Now that the gathers are basted on, I can just align everything with pins all the way around and get it sewn. Okay, I've got the waist all pinned on the round. This is super fiddly. The fabric is slippery. It wants to curl. Look at it curling everywhere. So everything I've done has taken a long time, but it's going to be worth it to have the bodice lined. Remember, we have 3 layers. There's a bodice, the skirt, and the bodice. The skirt is gathered in between. That's why I hand basted it to the first layer of the bodice so it would be easier to manage. And we have wrong side of the bodice showing and wrong side of the bodice showing, so you don't make a mistake. I'm going to sew with a narrow zigzag all the way around so that I do have some give when I put this on over my head and down my waist. It has to go over my bust. And I'm using the edge of my presser foot as the guide here. Okay, that seam is fine just on the sewing machine. You don't need to serge that because it's going to be enclosed. Now let's flip this. There we have it. Bodice pieces, wrong sides touching. So we have the right side of the fabric on the outside and on the inside. And as we go down, we have the gathered skirt coming from in between. This is how it's going to look like on the wrong side. Super neat. There's no seam, nothing like that. It's just the folded fabric and the skirt coming from in between. So an enclosed waist is lovely. All I need to do up here, and I do it by hand, is just grab the raw edges of the neckline and baste it. I do it by hand, baste the armholes, and then this can all act as one layer to sew in the sleeve and to sew in the neckband. Because it's easier to do it now rather than later, I am going to finish all of this, do the neckband, do the sleeve and all of that. And the last thing I'm going to do is the second T, which is a huge piece to gather into there. I've just done a quick try on, and if you wanted, you can make a cute top. This is also going to be the shorter bishop sleeve. I think if you wanted to hem it normally and just let it be like that, I think it would be another nice alternative. I am going to sew up the hem, leave the casing and add the elastic. I'll just measure the elastic against this part of my arm and add the second T of the skirt right here. But I think it's a really cute top as well if you wanted to just do that. Here is my dream on dress. I really love this print. It's a leopard print, but small print in gray tones. I think it's really pretty. I think I'm going to be able to wear this for a very long time. I have 2 layers. That's why you can see the right side of the fabric on the inside and the outside. And I used a denim look cotton lycra for my neckband. It was a better choice. I don't like neckbands in ITY. They're really floppy and they just don't work out really well. I have sewn them. I just don't like them. So I did this instead. And the neckband went in perfectly. This is the mid scoop. There's a higher one and there's a lower one. I think this one's perfect. Here is my shorter bishop sleeve. It ends up around my elbow. Super easy. You just sew a casing at the bottom and thread the elastic. I measured the elastic against where I wanted it. I never want it tight, so I leave myself a nice amount of ease. Just enough to still get some gathers right there. So easy. And then here is the bodice. All the gathers are enclosed. And then let me tell you how long it took to gather this, because it's a lot of fabric here at the bottom. So it's not a dress that's going to take you 1 hour to sew. It's probably going to take you, depends on what you're doing, between 2 and 3 hours to make, because of all the gathering. The gathering can take quite a while, but it's so pretty. I really love how it turned out. Let me show you on the inside. See, we have a lined bodice and we have the gathers inside. So that means that that seam is enclosed. Whatever is touching your midsection is super nice, very smooth. Love doing that when we line bodices. And here we have the tees. Now, because we have 3 pieces at the bottom, those seams are not going to end up on the side seam, but you can't see them. No one's ever going to know there's all those seams down there to be able to get the width that you need. And yeah, this is amazing. Now, because I sewed this bishop sleeve that reaches the elbow, it sort of limits the type of jackets that I can wear with it. So this is a dress I would probably wear on its own. I'd have to find a jacket that has more, ease on the sleeve to be able to fit this. If this was sleeveless, then I could wear any type of jacket. I have lots of jackets that are short sleeves that this would not work, because then this would poke underneath. So there are some styling limitations, but no worries. I will figure it out. Let's see it on. This is my dream on dress from Pattern Emporium. I used the gorgeous ITY print. There's lots of options in this dress. They all have a fitted bodice, of course, and 2 tiers. The lengths can vary from mini to knee to midi to maxi. I have the knee length and it's actually at the mid knee. I think it's a good length for me. The bodice hits my waist. I actually sewed a bodice for a tall person because there's a lower cut line, and the tees are wonderful. This fabric is amazing because you don't get all the bulk, and the fabric takes the gathers beautifully. They just don't puff out at all and create a lot of volume. I've got the mid neckline. There's a lower one and a higher one with a neckband. I used the contrasting cotton lycra right there. Super easy to put in. There you can see it. I've actually lined my bodice because I lined all of my ITY bodices, and I've got the shorter bishop sleeve option. There's a longer bishop sleeve, regular sleeves, lots of lengths, cap, long, 3/4, lots of options. I really love how it turned out. It's swishy, it's fresh, it's light. It's everything I dreamed of. When I chose my fabric, I could already envision the floatiness and how wonderful this dress was going to be. I really enjoyed sewing it. I love this dress. I think it's so pretty. This is a neutral. I could wear any color jacket, any color shoes and bag, and it would look amazing. I'd probably do that to make the outfit look a little more lively. And it's so pretty. It fits perfectly. You saw I showed you a little sneak when I was trying it on that you could just make a top. It's not official in the pattern, but of course you could do that as well. Of course, you could just hem the sleeves normally and just have them be like a flare sleeve. That would be nice as well. But yeah, super enjoyable. I recommend. You're going to really love it. And I think you're going to love the 50% off as well. If you're loving the sewing content and it's helpful for your own sewing at home, please don't step out of this video before tapping on the like button. It really helps the channel grow here on YouTube. Thank you so much.